Your worship, at 6:45 p.m.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Knopper, for setting this up. So we will call to order the regular council meeting here Monday, January 17th. It is 6:45 p.m. and it is immediately following the public hearing of objections that was just previously held. We are airing this on Facebook, but also through our new Zoom panelist. Now if anyone would like to join, they can watch on social media, but they can join directly through the Zoom link as well. You do have to register, but Mr. Knopper would be happy to guide anyone through that in the future that would like to join. Or is it even possible to join right now, Mr. Knopper, before we get into it? Is it?
Your worship, there's still a link active on Facebook. I have put there that anybody who wishes to still register for the meeting can still do so.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. Let's get into the agenda. I note that all members of council are in attendance, so thank you very much, council. I'll be looking for a mover to approve the agenda. So could I have someone move on the agenda for this evening? I have Councillor Hurdle and a seconder. It would be Deputy Mayor Akaji. Any discussion on the agenda tonight or anything that jumps out to anyone for changes? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda, just signify by raising your hand. And that is everybody. The agenda has been approved. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there any this evening? I've got Councillor Blanchard raising his hand. Go ahead, Councillor Blanchard.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just recuse myself on, I guess, the motion on rezoning 15036-031 for Belmax Inc. I'm just going to recuse myself from that, even though it's tabling. But
perfect. Thank you for doing that. I know you've been doing that consistently throughout that one, so thank you. So we'll look for you to recuse yourself at that time. Anyone else? Okay, for myself, I will be declaring two this evening. The first one very consistent before, so I will be doing it in regards to the Nano Brewery, but I will also be doing the one in regards to the Van Horn Garden Homes, which I've been doing all throughout the process as well. So I'll recuse myself and look for the Deputy Mayor to chair the meeting on those two particular items. Presentation. So we do have a couple this evening. First of all, jump into attendees. I can see that David Johnson is in the waiting room. So he'll be presenting tonight on behalf of the St. Andrews Outdoor Recreation and Trails, and it's regarding outdoor fitness equipment in St. Andrews. So for those of you that are on the previous council, we met with Dr. Johnson as before. So he wants to get before the new council to discuss the location. So this time, if you want to add him in, Mr. Knopper, we can welcome him.
Yeah, I've just promoted him to panelist, so give him a second.
Thank you.
Give me a second. Dr. Johnson, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't see me.
Yes, you're going to have to turn. I'm promoting you to panelist. It should be asking you.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can turn on your camera.
You just muted yourself, Dr. Johnson.
I'm wondering if it would be possible for Alan Fyander and Holly O'Rourke to join me as well, just in case I need some moral support.
Dr. Johnson, I'm still waiting for them to arrive as panelists. When they do, I will be more than happy to transition them into the meeting.
Okay.
But you do have the floor to council, and if you can turn on your camera.
If I can find my camera. There it is. Got it.
There you go.
There he is. Welcome, Dr. Johnson. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
So we've just really kicked the meeting off, and I did kick it off to let them know that you're part of SORTI, and it's in regards to the outdoor fitness equipment and the location. So they're aware of that, but we'll pass the floor over to you. And if you have any at the end of it, I'm sure council will have a few questions for you as well, but you know the routine. You've been before us for other reasons in the past, so we welcome you back.
Thank you. Could I possibly share my screen?
Share screen is open and available for you.
Okay. So gotta find where I share it. That's the problem. All goes very slowly. Where is the, hang on, there it is.
Share screen, the share button's at the bottom
Got
of
it.
your,
Got it, got it. What do I do? Am I there yet?
We can see it. It says Wellness Park for St. Andrews. You may have to put it in presenter mode though for us to see.
Yes,
Partial
yeah,
screen.
okay.
Thank you.
Going?
you're going
Seems to be off screen
slightly.
slightly, yeah. Okay, I'm a bit bigger than my screen, unfortunately. So I'll go with what I can see anyway, which is not up. So wellness parks, as we know, have been popular for at least the last 20 years or so, and are becoming more widespread within Canada. Essentially what they are, and the aim is to provide an exercise facility to improve the health and well-being of the community, and primarily the facility, and is supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be free, and it's informal so that people can use it spontaneously. It's accessible to adults of all ages and abilities, and we hope it becomes a social meeting place where there's intergenerational gathering and encouraging seniors out of their home. It is not the same as a gym. It's complementary to it. Gyms generally are viewed as having serving a more limited demographic of age and fitness levels, and there is some whiff of no pain, no gain about gyms, which makes them a little threatening to people like me. We do need an indoor gym, particularly in this sort of weather, and I hope the one at the Wellness Centre is proceeding. There are 4 types of exercise needed to improve health: endurance, or aerobic, which is walking, biking, swimming; muscle strengthening exercises, where the muscles work against a resistance and can be done with either weights or elastic bands, or just simply using their own body weight; balance exercises, walking heel to toe, standing on 1 foot, or Tai Chi; and flexibility exercises. I've added a 5th to my 4th, so sociability. We're social creatures. We need companionship and company. And so particularly with COVID, the cabin fever and so on is becoming a problem for some of us. Most important of those exercises are actually muscle strengthening exercises, which have a great effect on basal metabolic rate. They help to lose weight. They improve blood sugars, blood pressures, get rid of intra-abdominal fat, which is associated with heart disease and cancer and a variety of things. And they also help increasing bone strength in people with osteoporosis. With the help of our physiotherapy member, Holly O'Rourke, chose 8 machines of this manufacturer's 14. They are involved with all 4 exercise activities, and I'll just run through them and show you what we've chosen. Everybody seems to be having fun using them, and they go through a variety of ages. The machines will be bolted onto reinforced concrete pads, and the concrete pads probably will be on a bed of gravel. Location. Location is really very important for wellness parks. They should be visible and in a prominent position to encourage spontaneous use. They should be easily accessible on foot. Adjacent to parking for those with mobility problems. There should be toilets close by, and there should be space for expansion for example, additional stations, for seating, for picnic tables, for areas perhaps for Tai Chi. And a number of these adult wellness parks are associated but separate from accessible parks for children. And that possibly might be something that we could consider in the future. We considered a number of locations for the park, and they're listed there. We chose as the optimum one, the Pagan Point Indian Point Park location. I'd be more than happy to give you our reasons for not choosing the other locations if there's time. So this is the location we chose. It's adjacent to the trail, where the trail crosses Water Street, Prince of Wales, the walking around town circuit. There's a lot of vacant land around it. It's obviously in a prominent position. If the area between Prince of Wales, Water Street and King Street holds a substantial proportion of the population of St Andrews, and so it puts this location in easy walking distance of them. This is the footprint of the park. The 4 concrete pads, which measure about 24 feet by 50 feet in total. And that is the approximate rectangular area that they would occupy. This is not the definite location, but somewhere within this area. In this area between the park and the trail, where the stones are just towards the park, the sewer line from the subdivision runs. And so that would be have to be avoided, but that wouldn't be too difficult. Questions raised by our preferred location, the sewer line, which I've just mentioned. Subsidence, this location is the site of the old town dump, and there are areas where the ground has collapsed somewhat. We are planning to put the machines on concrete platforms. Before we locate them, we would dig test holes and where necessary, and probably would put in a sub-base of gravel. The platforms would certainly float and take the weight of what we're putting on them. This area of land, like much of St Andrews, is disputed land. It was the traditional territory of the Peshto Kamakati. I spoke to John Ames. I wrote to John Ames and told him what we were proposing. I spoke to him afterwards. He said he was very pleased that we consulted with him, and because there was litigation going on, he would not be able to put anything in writing, but promised me that the tribe would not object to this land being used for our purpose, and would not put in something like a stop work order. We need toilets in the area. 2 years ago, before COVID struck, the town was planning to build toilets in that area, and during the summer months anyway, it has had toilets, including a wheelchair accessible one. The other question that was raised before was the vista, the park spoiling the view of the open space there. This is the road driving up to the car park there. Whoa, wrong way. This is the car park. Our wellness park would be the other side, in the region of the other side of those rocks there. Pressing the wrong button. This is the view coming from the Algonquin. And this is the view from the park looking at the surrounding area. Behind the cedar hedge, which I can't see, is one property. But the park is reasonably well obscured by that hedge. The Cape Cod house that I'm looking at there is owned by people who are very strong proponents of the park, and I would be very keen to see it there. This is the highest machine that we're putting on there, the stretch machine. It's somewhat higher than that post which supports the information panels. Those posts are approximately 6 feet high. When we have the park there, we'll have 4 of those posts, This man standing by the car looks about 6 feet high to me. If you imagine him standing in front of that red car or in front of the hood of the red car, then that would be the height of one of the posts and there'd be 4 of them. Funding, SORTI has 25% of the cost of the park and a little bit of a cushion. We applied to ACOA for 75% of the funds and did get a positive response. And I think I sent you a letter inferring this. We had a meeting before Christmas and they're keen that we do get the localization defined, as they've pointed out to us that others are after the same pot of money. If we do get the site firmed up, then their next step, and they pay for it, would be to do an environmental assessment there. I had a lot more to say, but I was threatened by Mr. Nopper that if I went over the 10 minutes, I'd get cut off.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Johnson. I appreciate you presenting this evening. I was saying earlier to Councillor Gubishal and Deputy Mayor Akaji, we have seen a similar presentation before, but there was a lot more context around it with visuals in this one, as well as height and more detail. So thank you for adding on and providing some clarity. So Council, just for your information, the last Council supported this initiative. They did think that it would be something wonderful for the community. The only thing that Council was trying to work out with SORTI was the location. You know, there was various opinions, never consensus as far as I remember 100% where it wanted to go. But Council wanted to look at a number of options and pick one. Now that was taken off the table simply for the fact that the grant didn't come through last year, but through Dr. Johnson and the rest of the members of his committee, they've continued to work along at this, and it seems like it's another option as well. So if that's a quick summary of where it was in the last Council. So for this Council, at this point, we'll open it up. If you have any questions for Dr. Johnson, before you do, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Johnson. Offering to pay 25% of a project for the community is always greatly appreciated. So although Council tonight might ask questions on location and other things, don't think for a moment that we're not appreciative of all that you do. You're no stranger to Council. We appreciate all your volunteering you do in the community and all the great things you do, especially around trails. So thank you. Council, over to you. Any questions at this time? Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much, Dr. Johnson, for the presentation. That's great, and it's an exciting project for sure. I just have a couple of questions, and I'm sorry that it's probably going to make you go over really well-trod paths that you've gone up with previous Council. But when joining a gym, obviously you would normally sign a waiver in case you hurt yourself on the equipment. Does the town have to take on additional insurance in this case? How do we protect ourselves and the public against injury?
I really don't have an immediate answer to that question, actually. All the machines are only a short distance above the ground. We did wonder at one time about putting rubber matting there, but decided against it. Primarily because we didn't think it was necessary, but also because of the cost. You know, if somebody should fall on these machines, it's like somebody walking along the sidewalk, you know, and they, but I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
No trouble. I guess my second question would be, what would be the lifespan of these machines? How long would they be intended to be in operation?
I think they have quite a long lifespan. The company that we're buying them from has been in existence for about 30 years or so, and it's based in Ontario, Paris, Ontario. They've been making machines more for children's playgrounds, and there's quite a few of them around in the province. And we've talked to the recreation director in Quispamsis, who are very pleased with them. The maintenance is supposedly very low. The ones with moving parts, the ball bearings and so on, are they're stainless steel ball bearings. They're in enclosed compartments, and the company claims that maintenance, if Any is basically repairing scratches. They're quite solidly built machines. I have seen that Oromocto has a couple of adult machines which look very solid, and they I spoke to the director up there, and they were pleased with them. I think they have from the company, they claim that they have a long lifespan with minimal maintenance.
You answered my third question, which was about maintenance. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. Appreciate the questions. Any other member of council? I see Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Dr. Johnson. I was just wondering, you had mentioned during your presentation about the other locations.
Yes.
I was just wondering if you could touch on whatever objections SORTI might have to some of the other locations.
Sure, I'll try and find them maybe to remind me what they were. Where? That one? Yeah, could I share this again, or shall I just run through them? Listing them off, the first one was individual stations along the trail. They don't apparently work. That Grand Bay Westfield had something like that, and I talked to the people up there, and they said that people tended to use the first one on the trail, go for a walk, and then use the last one on the trail, and so they were not used. And the social aspect, people gathering around and mentoring and so on. Although these stations are, have signs explaining what to do, Holly O'Rourke, our physiotherapist, and others on our committee have said that they would mentor people and run sort of semi-informal classes on how to use the machines. I'm going off topic, aren't I? I'm not answering your question, but and also maybe running classes there. I'll get that in. Katie's Cove was the next one we considered. Katie's Cove we decided against because it is remote and during the winter months is at the moment is fairly inaccessible. So it would lose the spontaneity. You'd have to be going there. Sites at the old Legion building and Irving gas station we considered, but only briefly. I think the Legion building site is expensive land, and I've heard from elsewhere that Irving doesn't like to let go of their old gas stations, particularly if you're going below the surface. Adjacent to the campground entrance was another one. There's a piece of land there where there used to be a kiosk. The objections to that is that there is no toilet there. The campground has a toilet, which is restricted to the campers who do not have their own toilets. It's also close to the campground, which means that if everybody in the campground during the summer months decided to spend 3 minutes on the machine, there'd be long lines to use them. So I think they would be overused there. Centennial Park and Langmaid Park. We decided against those. Centennial Park does have toilets, but it is a very well-used park. There would be parking problems there because there's parking for Centennial Park, there's parking for the Blockhouse, and there's also parking for the Niger Reef restaurant. And so if you go down there in the summer and try and get a place to park, you sometimes have to go quite a way to get it. Langmaid Park, similarly, the parking would be a problem. It's a memorial park. There's a variety of memorial trees that have been planted there, and it is a functioning, pleasant park. And I'm sure that there'll be quite a few objections to Langmaid Park from the people who do have memorial trees in there. I have 2 friends who are memorialized by trees in there, and there are many others. What else did I have there? Adjacent to the new lodge, that was interesting. The new lodge hopefully is going to be up by the subdivision. There's nothing very much up by the subdivision. We were quite interested in that, and associating it with the lodge. If there's, we'd have access hopefully to toilets there. There was talk about having a coffee bar or restaurant where the residents of the lodge and people using the park could all cohabit or meet or whatever. The objection to that is that it's down the road, and we haven't we are considering bringing up some sort of exercise park there, possibly similar to this, possibly something like in Caracat, where there's something called bench fit, where they have a little green space surrounded by park benches with signs on them, and on one side it's for old people, and on the other side it's for jocks, and the exercise you can do, either doing press-ups or raising your arms when you're sitting down and so on. And I think that could be nice there. And if the lodge does go, then I think we'll come back to you about that if there's some land there. And that was it. And then we came to our chosen site, which I think really does have everything. It's prominent. It's got a lot of space around for expansion. It's at the crossroads of the two main walking routes, which is the round town on the roads, Prince of Wales, Water Street, and the trail. And it's unused. Which I mean, I'm not saying that all land should be used, but it's unused land as part of a very large green space. And I think its impact there on the surroundings would be minimal.
Thank you, Dr.
Great,
Johnson.
great summary. Thank you.
Any other member of council have any questions? Councillor Heenan.
First, Dr. Johnson, a great presentation. You put it in perspective for me. I like the location that you have chosen simply because we're very fortunate in St. Andrews. We don't have a large vandalism problem. However, having the park sort of out in the open is to me a lot better, and it's a good PR for the town. And it also is great because everybody uses that loop when they come into town. They come down Water Street, they go around. So I think it's an ideal location. Just my 2 cents worth, and thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. Any other member of council? All right, I'm not seeing any. Just a quick one for you. I know that in your presentation, toilets were important, so washroom facility. The only thing, my only concern I have of this is this particular council hasn't had really any debate on a location of a new washroom. I know it was something that the previous council was looking at. I do know that this council will have to weigh out the location, maybe there, but also balancing the fact that currently in our downtown, our washroom facilities aren't meeting the existing demand of people in that particular area either, with porta potties being located in downtown St. Andrews. So my only concern is whatever way council decides on this is that there's no commitment of washrooms being in that particular area to service that. So if it's important, it's just important to note. I don't know if there's any comments on that or any concern, Dr. Johnson. It's just a thought right now for if you do put it there, there's no guarantee there will be a washroom there.
Could I point out, Your Worship,
Absolutely.
that there are portable toilets in that area each summer.
Okay, so
a
you
little further along the park, but they are there, including an accessible one.
okay, so you'd be just to be clear, so portable toilets would meet the need of the particular facility if they continue there. That's
If
good
there's
note.
no other choice, absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Because I do know at one time council was considering potentially putting one down there. So I just want to note that this council hasn't really discussed that yet, or at least put it as a priority. All right. Well, I appreciate the time, Dr. Johnson. So the next step would be for council to take this back, deliberate, and then get back to you. So usually when we have a presentation, we don't make a decision on the spot. People sometimes take it back, use it as an opportunity to have consultation with different people, reflect, and the following meeting. Generally speaking, we have it. I do know that if you're doing grants, that quick response is obviously ideal. So we are likely passing a motion for procedural bylaw, which means that we can make motions now with 2 weeks notice. So it should be quicker service moving forward for the town of St. Andrews, assuming that passes. So we'll have something back to you in the very near future. Thanks for presenting. And I see that Mr. Fiander joined you as well for some support there. So thank you, Mr. Fiander, for being on the call as well. So again, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to the second presentation with Vivian Peng, who is a junior planner. She's with Xander Gopin, who is the senior planner for the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission. They're doing a presentation in regards to the rezoning of Kingsbury Arms Incorporated, which is PED 220102. And I do note that the owner of the business, Diane Lewis, I'm just double checking. Yes, she's in the attendees. So should anyone have any questions for her, any concerns? I'm sure she's willing to speak, and Of course, if it is something that you're thinking of taking to first reading, obviously we do have a hearing of objections as well. So if you are bringing it ahead, it is an opportunity next week for her to, or not next week, but that is set 30 days for her to actually speak there as well. But I just wanted to let everybody know that she is in attendance as well for any questions that you may have. So at this time, I'll pass it over to the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission. Thanks for joining us, Sandra and Vivian.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll share my screen with everyone, so hold on. All right, can everybody see it?
We sure can.
Perfect, yeah. So thank you for the introduction, Your Worship. So again, my name is Vivian Peng. I am the planner on this file. I have a short presentation for actually two proposed amendments. One is to the municipal plan, so that's MP 20-04, and the second one is to the zoning bylaw, which is Z21-07. The applicant of this proposal is Ms. Diane Lewis. She is the owner of Kingsbury Arms Inn, which is a hotel. This is also the subject property of the two proposed amendments. The property is located at 219 King Street in St. Andrews, which is currently zoned as serviced residential. The surrounding area of this property has commercial use, institutional use, residential use, etc. So in other words, this is already a neighborhood with mixed land uses. The proposal here is to serve alcohol drinks to guests at this location. So as the bylaw sees it, this is to have a secondary use, a secondary licensed premises use as part of the hotel, which the current zone of this property isn't really the most appropriate to do something like that. And that is why 3 amendments are requested to host this use. The first proposed amendment is to the municipal plan, which is to change its land use designation from residential to commercial. The second proposed amendment is to the zoning bylaw, which is to rezone this property from serviced residential to a tourist commercial zone. And last but not least is a text amendment to the zoning bylaw to allow a licensed premises as a secondary use of a hotel in a tourist commercial zone. Right now, the zoning bylaw only allows a restaurant to have a licensed premises as a secondary use. So this is what the generalized future land use map would look like after the municipal plan proposal. The color reflects the new commercial land use designation. And this is what the zoning map would look like after this rezoning. And this new color reflects the new tourist commercial zone if council decided to pass this. The municipal plan does have some policies in support of a proposal like this. The first policy is 2.0 under overall plan goals, which is to sustain and grow economic and commercial opportunities that meet the current and future needs of residents and visitors. The next policy is under 2.5.2 economy. Policy number 1, council shall seek to provide an economic climate conducive to investment and growth of year-round employment opportunities while protecting and enhancing the quality of life in St. Andrews. And the last one is policy number 9. If council determines a need to develop a commercial area outside the existing commercial zone, council shall ensure that consideration is given to protecting the existing character of the area in which the development is proposed. Linear and ribbon commercial development, such as strip malls, shall be discouraged. So as we already established, this property is sitting in a neighborhood that already has lots of mixed land use already. So having a commercial use in there wouldn't be too much of a standout. This proposal does not include any change of use nor any change to the existing land use intensity. So staff believes this rezoning is more of a correction to the existing categorization of the land. So in staff's opinion, this rezoning is not likely to affect existing character of the neighborhood and is consistent with municipal plan policies. And for the text amendment to the zoning bylaw, it is normal for a hotel to have alcohol service, aka a licensed premises as a secondary use. Such use is also consistent with the land use pattern and intent of a tourist commercial zone. So in staff's opinion, by allowing such use in a tourist commercial zone will encourage investments and will open up a full experience for tourists when they visit St. Andrews. So based on the above arguments, staff recommends that council give first reading of the proposed amendments, to request written view of PAC on those proposed amendments and set a date for the public hearing of objections according to the Community Planning Act. And for council's information, PAC will have a meeting on February 16th in 2022. And according to the Community Planning Act, a notice has to be published 21 days prior to the date of the public hearing of objections. That's the end of my presentation, and I'm open for questions and discussions.
Thank you very much, Vivian. Appreciate that. Very concise and to the point. So thank you for that quick summary. I guess to kick off, I have a quick question. So it does have a commercial kitchen in it, and my understanding is up until a couple of years ago, it actually had a full restaurant in there with the capability of serving food. Were they serving alcohol at that time, and was it granted as a variance? Is that what happened here?
As far as I know, they do serve breakfast to the guests. So I'm not really sure it's a full commercial kitchen that serves, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For alcohol service, I think that would be a good question for the owner as well, because I'm not really aware of existing alcohol service at the location.
Okay. I know that it's currently not. I don't know if it was just with the sale that something stopped, or it's been operating for a while, and I think I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming at one point they did sell alcohol there as part of a restaurant. I see Councillor Hurdle nodding your head. I don't know if you've ever dined there, and if it was for sale. I'm just
not personally, but I know people who have, and there've been wine and cheese nights there in the past with previous owners. So I'm not sure. Again, that's a great question that you're asking, though.
Yeah, my assumption is it might have been a variance at one point, and with the sale of it, it actually expires, and as such, we're facing rezoning. But I guess my follow-up to that question is that that particular location has served alcohol in the past, is my assumption. So it's not a completely new concept. Any other member of council have any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. There is a motion later on to go to first reading, and we do note that your recommendation would be to go ahead with first reading and have the hearing objection. So thank you very much for that this evening. All right. So we've got some minutes to approve. So we're going to get right into them. I'll try to do them as quickly as possible. Actually, only 2 sets, which is nice because we took some holidays. The first one is the minutes of the 21/12/06 regular meeting of council for December 6th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Be looking for a mover for those minutes. I see Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Heenan. Any changes to those minutes? All in favor of adopting those minutes, please signify by saying aye. And that's everyone. Those minutes have been adopted. And the other set would be the minutes 21/12/13, which is the special meeting of council on December 13th, 2021 at 6:30. Once again, I'll be looking for the mover. That is Deputy Mayor Akaji, and seconded by Councillor Blanchard. And any changes to those minutes required? All right, all those in favor of adopting those minutes, please raise your hand. That is everybody. I don't know if I saw Councillor Gumashell. Are you good on that one as well? Perfect. So we have that's unanimous and has been carried. We have nothing under communication, so we are getting into the staff reports. We'll pass it over to our CAO, Mr. Chris Spear, who I see you lost your headset, sir. Were you moving too much?
No, I'm not sure. There seems to be a Bluetooth issue that sometimes shut off my internet, so I had to take it off because I was losing everybody there a few minutes ago. And so if I happen to freeze up, Paul will take over. We've already made that arrangement, so we'll see how we go here. So first of all, happy 2022 to the mayor, council, staff, and residents of St. Andrews. This year should be monumental for the town as we transition through municipal reform and should see a significant increase in housing opportunities within the town. From council's perspective, as discussed, one of the big items we have before us is municipal reform, as legislated by the province. For St. Andrews, the current plan is the local service districts of Bayside and Shamcook will become part of our local government. As a start of cooperation, we are working with multiple local service districts to create a local zone for providing recreational services to the communities. Within a few weeks, a recreation agreement along with a job description for council will come before you for approval. If all goes well, a posting for a recreation director will be advertised and someone should be on staff by the late winter, early spring. On tonight's agenda are various motions regarding developments, including additional housing on the corner of Bar Road and Mowat Drive. As we move through other developments, the process is regulated and allows for public input, but gives ultimate authority to council, with the PAC having a role as well too. Staff makes an effort to keep the community informed so those that are interested can participate in the process. In addition to the development process, staff have prepared a report on various options for developments and the cost of services to entice developments for more affordable options. Council needs to balance the needs for housing versus the expectations of the taxpayer for whom we are stewards of the purse. Staff and developers are awaiting further instruction so we can finalize agreements and allow for constructions to start this year. Earlier this meeting, we had a presentation on an outdoor exercise park proposed at the Point. The previous council had reviewed this and suggested alternative locations. At the time, funding was not secure for this initiative and did not materialize, so it was not followed up on. However, as we heard, SORTI has now required funding through a federal grant and is eager to move forward and is bringing it up again for reconsideration. An updated version of the procedural bylaw is before you tonight, including the following significant change. Instead of having an end-of-month committee meeting to review the agenda, council will go with twice monthly regular meetings that allow debate and decisions at both meetings. It'll also allow for 2 readings of a bylaw in one meeting if council so desires. There is an amendment before you for the zoning bylaw to change some of the things we have learned since passing the new zoning bylaw last year. There are several changes that, although recommended by staff, should be reviewed closely by council to ensure you agree with their opinions. Administration. Although the streets get quieter in the winter, staff are busy planning spring projects, getting construction tenders issued, and preparing equipment tenders. We are also preparing for the annual audit, which will not take place until later in the spring. CBCL Engineering will be down over the next couple of weeks to do a geotechnical survey at the wharf area. This will provide them with better insight into how the proposed concrete structure will anchor to the bottom. Once that is determined, full design can take place and a tentative timeline determined. I would like to thank the staff at the Wellness Center for acquiring and distributing rapid testing kits for the community to make them more accessible for those who could not get to St. Stephen or St. George throughout the day. The 2021 nuisance deer hunt went better than expected. With a number of new property owners, it was harder to coordinate with some of them this year. However, 41 animals were harvested in 2021 compared with 42 the prior year, so right on target. There are over 100 licenses available for bow hunters, so approximately 40% usage rate of the tags. Staff will be doing a full review of the vehicle bylaw to bring to council for recommendations in a couple or 3 months. There is a lot of interest from the community regarding this, and an effective communication strategy should align with the consultation period and the eventual rollout. Services. Staff are trying to balance the ongoing and developing COVID restrictions with the execution of services. The pandemic has basically shut the arena and the youth center. Currently, because schools are closed to minimize translation, we have stopped members from coming, and that was even before the level 3, from using the youth center for the time being. We will open it up when schools reopen or come up with a plan that will allow participation while minimizing risk. The Ross Memorial Library has noticed a substantial decline in activity as well, because programming has gone virtual. They do have they do have a new lot of junior readers in that you can still go in to obtain, or they'll provide curbside service. As always, their inventory is on the Provincial Library website, and keep up with the going-ons of the Ross Memorial Library on Facebook. I will say we just got a note Friday or earlier today that the library actually is pretty much closed for service. People by appointment can go in to access the internet, but everything else is actually have to be on a curbside pickup. The fire department has transitioned over to the new provincial trunk mobile radio system. In addition to the extra equipment council authorized in December, the department's communication equipment has taken a large leap forward. The ongoing refurbishments of the water treatment plant continue with upcoming upgrades to the ultraviolet system. We are halfway through the anticipated life cycle of the facility, so this investment is expected as some of the components had a planned replacement cycle. Public Works would like to remind everyone that the Christmas tree pickup is completed this Friday, January the 21st. Another reminder, during snowstorms, plow drivers cannot see what's under the snow. For curbside pickup items like Christmas trees, recycling, and garbage, if you see there are snow clearing operations going on, please keep the items from the roadside until the next day or a few steps in your driveway where the collectors can still grab the items, but won't be the casualty of a snowplow wing. Reviewing the planner's report, it is encouraging to see building permit valuation for last year was up 72% and 163% since 2019. Although there were a couple of big homes added, a lot of the valuation was related to renovations on existing structures. In conclusion, with the effects of the January blues and pandemic wariness on us, it is a hard month for many individuals. I would suggest we continue to check up on each other, visit those we can safely, often, and take advantage of any virtual social gatherings we can. As always, staff are available for any questions or concerns you may have around your local government, so feel free to reach out. As we can see, Zoom is our friend. Thank you, Your Worship. That's my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. Is there anything to add under financials? I guess the quick one that jumps out at me is I assume that snowplow budget is taking a little bit of a hard start compared to the last couple of years we've had.
Certainly taking a harder start, but we still haven't had the real big major storms. So I'd say compared to 2 or 3 years ago that we're right on target. It's just the last couple of winters we're pretty spoiled. So right now I'm comfortable for where we are this early in the year. I will mention, because the loss of our assistant treasurer, I'm a little late getting out the statements, but I probably have those polished up in the next couple of days and we'll forward them to council.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Spear. Any other questions by any member of council regarding staff reports or any financial questions? I've got Councillor Heenan.
Oh,
There it
thank
is.
you, Mr. Spear. That was great. And Your Worship, I just want to say I read through the report and the thing, I love the sign at the arena. I just want to applaud staff and the design. It looks very nice and fits into the town perfectly. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that comment, Councillor Heenan. Anyone else? Otherwise, we'll look for a motion to approve staff reports. Do I have a mover? I've got Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Blanchard. Any more discussion on staff reports? Okay, so we'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the staff reports as presented, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. That has been carried. So thank you very much again, Mr. Spear, for taking us through those. It's always a good way to keep the public informed on all the great things and a nice summary for council and even some of the activities of staff. This is really our only visibility in it. So we, as a council, appreciate that. We're jumping right into the introduction, consideration and passing of bylaws. And we're going to kick it off. Actually, a light portfolio for tonight, Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Thank you, Your Worship. FA 211007. And the subject is the amendment number 3 to bylaw 16-03, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the Council of the Town of St. Andrews, the third and final reading. Background is this. Bylaw 16-03 governs the organization and operations of the council of the town of St. Andrews. Each council has an opportunity to review and make changes to this document. Provided with this document is the amendment number 3 to bylaw 16-03 for review by council. The first reading occurred November the 8th, 2021. The second reading occurred December the 6th, 2021. So the motion is that council grants leave for the third and final reading to the amendment number 3 to bylaw 16-03, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the council of the town of St. Andrews. And I so move this.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. A seconder? And Councillor Heenan again. Any discussion on this one? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody. So that has been passed. So
Your worship, you
Yep.
just have to read this by title as it was advertised out on our website and posted accordingly. So you can read this just by title.
well, this will be very quick then. This is amendment number A3 to bylaw 16-03, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of the council of the town of St. Andrews. And the ones that will be updated: section 1, authority; section 5, deputy mayor; section 6, regular meetings; section 7, special meetings; section 14, mayor's duties; section 15, regular meetings; section 15.2, special meetings; section 17, which is changes to the agenda; section 20, presentation; section 23, bylaws; section 24, motion; section 28, mayor entering debate; section 34, council committee; section 36, town clerk. And that is there. So that was read the first time, the 8th day of November 2021. Then it was read the second time on the 6th day of December 2021, and read the last time, so the third time, here on the 17th day of January 2022. And we will, that has been carried. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I believe that's it for you tonight, Deputy Mayor. So we are jumping over to Councillor Blanchard, the Public Works.
Thank you, Your Worship. So PW 220102, setting greenhouse gas emissions targets for the town of St. Andrews. So at the December 6, 2021 regular council meeting, Aldea Poirier and Brianna Cowie from Eastern Charlotte Waterways provided a presentation on the greenhouse gas mitigation plan and energy study for the town of St. Andrews under an environmental trust fund grant from the province of New Brunswick. The goals of the project were to create a baseline inventory of greenhouse gas emissions, and forecasting, set emissions and energy reduction targets, and develop a local action plan to guide the municipality to meet emissions reduction goals. To complete the report for the town, council has to set an emissions target to achieve. The Eastern Charlotte Waterways is recommending that the town set an emissions reduction target of 30% below 2020 levels by 2030, or a reduction of 202.56 tons of CO2. Council can increase or decrease the target. This project meets the goals of the municipal plan, MP 20-01, under environment and climate change sustainability. Council, and under that, section 5 says, council shall seek to work closely with community groups and other government departments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and permit, in conjunction with the proposed clean energy strategy, renewable energy use within town. And then section 7 states, council shall, where necessary, introduce new standards and operational approaches to reducing potential climate change impacts. This may include flood control measures, vegetation retention, and shoreline erosion control. So the motion before council is that council sets the greenhouse gas emissions reduction target of 30% below 2020 levels by 2030, or 202.56 tons of CO2, for the greenhouse gas mitigation plan and energy study for the town of St. Andrews being completed by Eastern Charlotte Waterways, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. A seconder for that motion? We've got Councillor Neal. All right, open for discussion. Any comments by any member of council? Any staff? Councillor Neal, I see first.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, it's just a question, I guess, or to get a feeling from council. with regards to the target limit. Again, I'm fully supportive of this initiative. I think it's fantastic. I'm just curious about the 30% and whether we feel that is actually attainable by 2030. And the reason I bring this up, I guess, is just from ECW's report that if I don't want to get the numbers incorrect, but if I remember, it was a 22% reduction from over a 12-year period up to 2020. And now we're targeting a 30% reduction over the next 8 years. And I guess it just raised the question for me as to whether that was even attainable. And again, I think of it like with the major upgrades we made to the arena, the new roof, the windows, I mean, those things to me would have a large impact. And I can just see this as not really being a linear relationship in the sense that as we make these large gains, it's going to become harder and harder to sort of continually improve. So I just was wondering what people's feelings were, I guess, regarding the 30% and whether we thought that that was actually an attainable target.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. That's a very fair comment. I know Councillor Blanchard, Councillor Hurtado have hands up. I did have similar conversations with members of staff, and just to be clear that if this does pass, there's going to be some significant financial decisions that we're going to have to make. We've done some great decision making on making, particularly the arena more energy efficient. But the reality is to get 30% in 10 years, it's not going to happen unless you have a specific plan. And unfortunately, that is going to require resources. So it's a fair comment. I don't know, Mr. Spear, if you have anything to add to that?
Well, I guess one thing, Your Worship, it's not 10 years, it's going to be 7 because it's over 2020 targets. We're in 2022 and we have absolutely no plan to do anything this current year. And so personally, again, I'm like Councillor Neal, I support this, but I'm concerned that the window's too small, that there's going to have to be significant investment. And I was talking to Ms. Cowie earlier or late last week, and she said, this is a target council. If we want to extend it out a little bit more, she understands, and that maybe that's more reasonable. But again, from my perspective, you've got to understand there's, if this passes, staff's going to take it as a serious initiative. And so as we're making further decisions on capital planning and things, we're going to have to be focusing on that. And so it could change where the investments go over the next few years. Again, I'm supportive of it, but I just want to make sure it's a reality check with everybody, especially in the short window, if it's achievable. There's granting money out there, significant amount that can help us get there through FCM. And maybe we can, but it's just to understand, the 7 years worries me as much as the 30% at this point in time. And really, the two biggest things, if you take it one step further, was our arena, which Councillor Neal pointed out. It made up, I think, 50%. I don't have the figures in front of me right now, but it was a significant portion of the greenhouse gases for our own facilities. And we've put a lot of money into that. So how much more can we make it efficient that we're not going to have to rethink stuff out? The next would be the water treatment plants, the wastewater and water, again, which we've put a fair amount of investment in it in the last couple of 3 years. And so are we going to reduce the economic life in those in order to achieve these targets? If that's council desire, then certainly we will. But it's just to keep those in mind before setting these goals that, it comes with potentially a sacrifice. And we have to decide if that's what you want in the short window. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Those are good points, Mr. Spear. So it's not a feels good statement. We'd actually need an action plan with targets and a budget to make this more achievable. As the end of the day, we've made some great strides, but Councillor Neal, you are correct. As you make great strides, the next stride gets harder and harder, right? So thank you for that, Councillor Neal. Councillor Blanchard, I saw your hand as well.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So I again, totally supportive of this. I think it's imperative that we do take sort of bold action, strong action to make this happen. Whether that window is a little too short, I would certainly be open to maybe looking at that and maybe expanding that out just a little bit. But in terms of the reductions, I think what's been mentioned with regards to our biggest sources of emissions, I guess you could say, right? The arena and the waste water and the water treatment facilities. The fact that that's what we have, those are our 3 big ones. I think that's actually good for us in that by targeting those 2 or 3 facilities, we can meet these targets rather easily if we can come up with even, 35, 40% reductions in energy emissions from those 2 or 3 facilities. We can meet that target rather easily. As has been mentioned, there is significant money available from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to convert or to retrofit or to improve efficiencies for things like this. Mr. Knopper and I and actually I believe one other member of the Environmental Advisory Committee are going to be part of another workshop coming up put on through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to actually look at and help us sort of develop and put together a plan specifically for we're looking at the arena. I think is probably the project that would get us the most bang for the buck, if you will. But I do think I do think it's achievable, and I think we really should take some steps. I will take this opportunity maybe to mention something that came out to council just the other day, that the province just recently put out a new flood hazard mapping tool up on the Government of New Brunswick website. I would encourage everyone to have a look at that because it does actually forecast out for the year 2100 what the high water marks or spring tide mark would look like here in St. Andrews. It also does forecast what those 1 in 20 year floods would look like and the 1 in 100 year floods would look like, and they would have a significant effect on the town of St. Andrews. Significant. Patrick Street, the lower part of Patrick Street would be inundated with water. Essentially, the entire point through the campground would be inundated with water. The water almost gets to our wastewater treatment facility, which is, that's potentially, that could cause obviously some significant issues here in the town of St. Andrews. Water Street, even on those large flooding events, they talk about the water actually getting up. If you go up King Street, even reaching Queen Street. I mean, this is significant. These are significant impacts on the town of St. Andrews. And I think it's imperative on us that we do everything we can to try and reduce those greenhouse gas emissions, because again, as I've looked at other reports, there are different forecasts that come out, and a lot of it is really based on how much warming there is over the next 60, 70 years. And if we can keep that down, and in order to do that, we are obviously a small portion of greenhouse gas emissions in the country, but every municipality has to do their part. And I think we really need to take this seriously. And I was thinking about it as well, just looking at those forecasts and who would be impacted by that. I'm looking at the high school and the elementary, Vincent Massey and Sir James Dunn. Every student, just about every student, should they live, a normal life here, could expect to be impacted by those forecasts, by those floods. So this isn't something way off in the distance anymore. These are things that are affecting children or will affect the children here in St. Andrews. So I do think it's on us to really take this seriously and to do our part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Blanchard. And again, appreciate all you do with the Environmental Committee. And I can tell you're passionate about it. So we certainly appreciate that in the comments. I do particularly go back to we're a municipality that had 50 different things that we had to focus on. It's really harder to come up with an action plan, but we know that there's only a couple things that are really the ones that are really at the end of the day emitting the carbon. It makes it a little bit easier to have focus. So that's a very valid point. I think I saw Councillor Hurdle's hand earlier as well.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Absolutely. I think I would always defer to Councillor Blanchard's passion and knowledge of the subject matter at hand. I guess, obviously all of us are going to have to sacrifice something in the upcoming days to get ahead of this. And I think we can't take this seriously enough. And I'm not going to be saying anything new that hasn't been said to those two things on that point. It is something that we have to start thinking about and sacrificing for. I guess what I'd like to know, and for me, is the piece that I'm missing is a little bit of context. And what I mean by that is how are we as a municipality doing? Are we ahead of the curve? Are we behind the curve? If we even look at our region, is the municipality among the major players? And can we, and then if we're not, or if we are, can we in turn influence other players around us or the public at large? I think this will, if we tackle this, we have to, I guess, agree as a group, this is going to be our target. So that we're going to have to apply some dedicated time and resources too. And obviously we've identified our strategic priorities for this year. So it would be next year. So if we do, where are we? How are we doing? And you know, is 30% putting us in a place that may not be feasible based on just the reality? I guess I just missed that context piece.
So thank you very much for that. Again, I wouldn't be the expert to answer this one, but I would make the assumption, and I'm sure Mr. Spear, Mr. Knopper could even correct me, that when you go into the big players as far as greenhouse gas emissions, I don't think St. Andrews would be really that high on the list. Simply the fact that we have really no big industry within our town limits. I don't think I wouldn't say by any means that we are a major greenhouse gas emissions. But with that being said, we always could improve. And when you look at things like in our community, like marine science, research, and things like that, the environment is really important to St. Andrews. So for people to live in this community, you'd want to be amongst the best for reduction. So I think that's where it's coming from. And then of course, the Councillor Blanchard's comments were also one of the ones that's in New Brunswick, and it is deemed that we're one of the most communities that will be impacted by rising sea levels and climate change. So more reason to be a leader. But am I correct in saying that, Mr. Spear? We wouldn't be a big player, but again, there's more that we can do to be leaders.
Certainly, as the overall community, we aren't one of the big players just because of the lack of heavy industry in the area. But I guess it's really, you should compare our operations to other municipal operations and at least see if we're as efficient as them. And it's an excellent question. And Councillor Hurl, I have no idea about how we do with the rest. It'd be a good question for Brianna, who talked about being on here. So I never could yell at her. Nonetheless, we'll maybe put that to her and supply an information back to council. I don't know. I would say St. Stephen with the new Garcelon Center might be a little more efficient because it's a new facility. And I think energy efficiency was built into that. But, you know, but again, the facility is so much bigger than ours. Its total carbon footprint is larger. But when you compare efficiencies of carbon footprint per square footage of usage or whatever the term is, it may be a lot more efficient than our arena, for instance. So again, staff believe there's stuff we can do. Just want to make sure if council was going down this path, they understood that it was going in a different direction than we had sort of discussed 6 months ago. That's all.
Thank you. I see another round of hands before we get to the second. Is there anyone else that hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet that would like to? Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I totally, absolutely support this. I just don't support the 30%, simply because that's, I believe, unachievable in 6 years. We are going to be having some development here in town. We have to take that into account. That's going to create more. I would be comfortable with saying like 20 plus, but 30% I think is going to put too much pressure on council, the purse strings, and I don't see us achieving it. I really don't. And I would rather have a lower goal and outseed it than I would have a high goal and not make it. That's just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I know that there's a second round of hands. Okay, Deputy Mayor Akinji, I'll let you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. I totally agree with this proposal, but as I said, as Councillor Heener says, I think 30% is a bit beyond our means. Perhaps we could lower it to 20%, then it would be feasible for us to attain. I know my house will be underwater, so yes, I would like to see this definitely brought forward, but I don't want to see the town lose its perspective and all of the other things that we have to do, plus find the funding for this. But I hope that we can do all the things that we do plan to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I open up for a second round, I am getting some consensus that there's just a little concern over the target, and versus set just an arbitrary number, what I'd actually recommend council to consider would be to actually table this motion, get Mr. Spear, maybe Councillor Blanchard to meet with Eastern Charlotte Waterways and talk about what they think versus just setting a number, what they think is either a reduced target or increased time frame to make this target more achievable than us just at this point. We're going to be meeting every 2 weeks. We can pass it for the sake of 2 weeks to get this target right. I just encourage council to potentially think about tabling this motion. But again, if you want to go ahead with it tonight, I support that as well. Any other comments? I think I saw a second round. Councillor Blanchard, Councillor Hurdle, anything to add?
Your worship, sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry, I don't know if we do have a couple of weeks to wait on it. Maybe Paul would know, but I know we had to submit a letter as part of a proposal, so I didn't know what the deadline for that was. I don't know if he could find that out for us before we decide to table.
Thank you.
If we decide to table, sorry, if we decide, but just to make sure that's not an obstacle.
Your worship, we do have to make a pretty quick decision on this, only for the fact that the grant funding is running out with this and it finishes quickly here. So the project ends in March and they need to complete the final report in February here. So they do need a decision.
So it sounds like we'll be either accepting this or amending this at this particular time, or potentially missing that window. Okay, Councillor Hurdle, I see.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to add just something to the record there. I absolutely, by trying to find out where we are, I don't want to slide into whataboutism at all and say, well, St. Stephen's not doing enough, or whomever, or whatever it happens to be. I do think this is serious enough for us to take it on ourselves. And if being a leader in cutting greenhouse gas emissions is what we want to do, and I think that it absolutely should be, I would rather see us set a target of 30%, miss it and land on 28, then set a target of 20, miss it and land on 18. I think that's a significant difference. And I would like us to, I'm speaking purely for myself and what I'd like to see. I think we as a community have an opportunity to be a leader and set benchmarks as well. And that's the position I'd like to see us in.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. Any other member of council? Councillor Blanchard.
Yeah, just quickly. Again, I'll agree with that. I'd like to see that 30, but perhaps extend out the timeline if that would help and make other councillors feel a little bit better. Perhaps adding 2 to 3 years to give us the full. I think it was suggested we may only end up really have about 7 years, so maybe we could push it out to about 10 years if that would make things easier and perhaps more achievable. I would also just like to say 2 things. One, again, this will cost the town some money. We will have to invest in this, but remember, there is in meeting Canada's climate change greenhouse gas emission goals, it wasn't intended to fall solely on the shoulders of municipalities. We all recognize that we cannot do this alone, and there is significant money available through the federal government, through Federation of Canadian Municipalities. That is where the large majority of this funding is going to come from. I also wanted to say too, it's not just about finding efficiencies. It perhaps could also be finding alternate sources of energy for existing facilities and what we have. So solar and things like that. The arena has been identified as a really good location for solar panels, given the large size of that roof. And it could power a significant amount of the energy requirements, not only for the arena, but also for any of those surrounding areas, things like the RCMP office, things like the youth center, things like the fire station, right? So those are where we can also achieve some of our goals, right? It's not just about efficiency, it's about alternative energy, forms of energy as well. So I wanted to mention that. And lastly, just on that, we are going to have to really think about not just, again, meeting these greenhouse gas emission goals, finding efficiencies and things like that. We are also going to have to think about mitigation, because a certain amount of the change is already locked in due to the carbon that is in the atmosphere now. So sea levels will rise, and we really need to think about mitigation and how we are going to protect the resources that we have from what is already going to happen. So we need to do our part to try and keep things at the low end, but recognizing that things are going to happen, and we need to really consider and think about what that's going to mean to the town in terms of just trying to protect what we have from things that are going to happen. So anyways, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. I do see 2 other hands, Councillor Gumashell, Councillor Neal. I'll go to Councillor Gumashell because I don't think you waded in yet on this one.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I was fairly ready to backpedal on the target until I heard Councillor Blanchard speak, and I want to thank him for his passion on this. I think we should go with the 30%. And as to Councillor Hurdle's comments that we should try to have a measurement, I think that's a very good idea. If we can measure ourselves against other communities, not so much in a finger pointing way, but just to kind of, it's always good to be able to measure your progress and figure out where we are now. So I'm ready to move forward with this, given that that we have a time crunch. And again, thanks to both those councillors for their insights. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Gumashell. I will, I've heard a little bit about just prolonging a little bit. I just, Councillor Neil, I'll give you the opportunity to speak, but maybe amendment just to change the year would be kind of where we all settle, keep the 30%. My recommendation would be probably 2034. The reason I say that is it will give this council, the next, and the one after that, so 3 different councils a term in order to try to hit that target. So they're setting their priorities. It extends it, but it gives, we're supposed to be an extra year. So call us done in 2026, so 2030, 2034. That's just why that number jumps out at me. Councillor Neil, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just to add quickly, my feeling, I guess, was if we were going to stick with the 30% to, again, extend the term a bit, like I mentioned at the start, it just seemed a little ambitious to me that, we got 22% reduction in 12 years, and now we're asking for another 30% within that 7-year time window. So I would be more comfortable extending the time frame. The only other comment I had was, do we have any indication as to like an action plan or how we plan to achieve this? Like, it's great to set the lofty goals, but actually knowing what it would entail, I think would really help us with the decision.
Councillor Neil, I asked Mr. Knopper and Mr. Spear the same thing. I think you see Mr. Knopper's hand, so I'll let you answer this as well for the group.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So we've actually been working with Quest, which is an environmental advisory group, on an accelerator program, which we've been updating council, and a number of council members have participated in. We're coming into the final throes of that, actually into the goal setting and implementation. And that's a community-wide strategic plan that'll be coming forward, as well as working with ECW on the municipal plan. So they're actually meeting with staff next week as a merger type program to see how there can be synergies between the goals. And eventually a strategy and goals will come forward from this, hopefully looking at early summer for the release of that for a finalized document. But that will give us goals and achievable processes to meet the percentages or what council sets tonight will be included in that. And then from there, it will be staff's job to work with council at budget times, as well as to find grants to achieve those projects based on what's been brought forward. So for those that have participated, like in the mapping projects and some of the other discussions, there are some very strong goals, and staff will be going through them here, and we'll be presenting them to council shortly. They are going to the Environmental Advisory Committee as well for review and for suggestions for which they would like to see come forward, and we'll make those suggestions in early February to council.
Thank you very much. So we have been talking about this one a while. It is an important initiative, but I was wondering, before I call the question, if anyone would like to make an amendment on the time frame, because that has been discussed this evening. Councillor Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I would like to make an amendment that we extend the time frame to the 2034 target date.
Okay, a seconder for that, I see Deputy Mayor Akaji. Any discussion, just to be clear, just for staff, that the amendment would be that council sets the greenhouse gas emissions reduction target of 30% below 2020 levels by 2034, or 202.56 TCO2E for the greenhouse gas mitigation plan and energy study for the town of St. Andrews being completed by the Eastern Charlotte Waterways. To read that word forward. So we have a first, second, or any discussion on that? Any changes, any thoughts? Otherwise, I'll call the question. Okay, all those in favor of accepting, first of all, the amendment, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. Okay, so we've accepted the amendment. So we're going to go back to the motion that I read. So could we have a mover on the amended motion at this particular time? Councillor Blanchard and a seconder on the motion. Councillor Heenan, and now discussion on that. Usually goes hand in hand, but I'll give the opportunity. Okay, seeing none, so I will call the question. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. And that is everybody. That's been carried. Great job, great conversation, council. And I can say that it is fantastic to see council really putting the environment first and having some meaningful conversation about it. And Councillor Blanchard, I appreciate again all your passion around it, and Councillor Hurdle, I do love the quote about you'd rather miss 30% than miss 20%. I do appreciate that comment. So thank you for that, Council. Let's jump back in, and we're getting just one for Councillor Blanchard. Councillor Neal has the night completely off tonight. So we're going to go into Councillor Hurdle under Business, Tourism, Heritage and Culture.
Forgive me 1 second. I was just so caught up in the discussion. I lost my place. I know it's
Page 70.
Thank you
Page
very
70.
much. And this is in reference to BTHC 220101. The subject is the Tourism Accommodation Levy 2022 budget approval. Background is at the December 6th, 2021 regular council meeting, Neil Shorthouse, chair of the Tourism Accommodation Levy Board and Explore St. Andrews, provided a presentation on their 2022 budget. Bylaw 19-06, a bylaw relating to a tourism accommodation levy in the town of St. Andrews, Schedule B, notes that council has to approve the budget prior to the release of tourism accommodation levy funds. Council does have the opportunity to approve, amend, or reject the budget submitted. And the motion before council is that the council approves the tourism accommodation levy board / Explore St. Andrews budget for 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. So you move on that one, do you?
I do.
Perfect. A seconder? I got Councillor Heenan, and I know we had a presentation on this just last meeting. So any discussion on this particular motion? Okay, a little easier than the last one. I'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. And anyone opposed? That's everyone, so that was carried. All right, we are at this point moving on to Recreation and Community Services. Councillor Gumashell. I know originally I said we usually take time to debate this, and for some reason I overthought that because it's before us tonight as well. So Councillor Gumashell, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Reference number RCS 220101, submitted by myself, and the subject is St. Andrews Outdoor Recreation and Trails Incorporated request for exercise course location. And the background reads, Dr. David Johnson from the St. Andrews Outdoor Recreation and Trails Incorporated presented to council on the concept of an outdoor exercise course for the community. SORTI is working with the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency for funding for this course. In order to complete the grant funding process, ACOA needs to know where the exercise course will be located. SORTI has a preferred location of Indian Point Park at the corner of Water Street and Prince of Wales Streets near the parking spaces. Please see the attached updated staff report for additional details on alternatives for the location of the exercise course. And the motion under action, the motion reads that council recommends Indian Point Park at the corner of Water Street and Prince of Wales Street location for the installation of the St. Andrews Outdoor Recreation and Trails Incorporated outdoor exercise course for St. Andrews upon written agreement with any third-party landowners. And I'd make that motion, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gumashell. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Got Councillor Heenan. All right, we're open to debate on the recommended location. Over to you, Council. Any questions, comments? Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you very much. I guess it just really hinges on if we decide that this is going to be the location for it. I know that in the presentation they talked about having a Pesca Makati consultation on it, but I didn't hear a definite answer, just that it was a sort of a verbal promise as opposed to any kind of endorsement for the use of this. And I just want to make sure that that we actually have that in writing before we would make that decision.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle, for that comment. If we do amend the motion, just to state that I have no problem myself reaching out directly to Mr. Ames just to get official opinion on the location.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Gumashell.
Your Worship, to Councillor Hurdle's point, I think to paraphrase what Dr. Johnson was saying, if I'm not mistaken, was that they wouldn't be giving anything in writing, but we had a verbal. So as not to slow this up anymore. I'm not saying you can't reach out and ask for something in writing, but to hinge it on that, I think might slow down the process considerably. and there is a time is of the essence with moving forward with this. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. I don't know, Mr. Spear, if you can answer, but sometimes we have certain projects, the funding is pending consultation with First Nations. I was wondering, or Indigenous. I was wondering if probably this type of grant wouldn't, because the location typically isn't, but maybe it is. I don't know if you can answer that.
Really can't, Your Worship, because it's not our project, so we haven't seen. But if it is from the federal partners, from what I understand, every project is requiring First Nation consultation and an EIA, because there was something I saw earlier from them that they want to proceed with the EIA once we've identified a location. So, which makes me lead to believe that they'll have to go through the First Nations consultation, but I don't know that for a fact.
With council's blessing, if you call it, I don't know, again, I don't know Mr. Spear on the technicality of this, Mr. Knopper, but I could reach out after this meeting if it does pass and reach out to Mr. Ames, and if there is any concerns, I can follow right back up with council. I don't know if once it's passed, if it's too far along, Mr. Spear, or if that's something that we can just add to the process after.
We can always amend motions even after the fact, Your Worship. So if we run into technicalities for whatever reason, then we can, make a motion the next meeting to basically reverse this motion and come up with a plan B. I will say too, just someone reminded me that one other concerns with these concrete pads, let's not forget that that was what the original use of that land was 40, 50 years ago. So there could be some concerns once they start doing a little bit of geotechnical on that about the ability to put a concrete pad. As I can tell you right now, we've had to add a lot of gravel and stuff because of things that are dropping there. But, they have Mr. Fiander, who's an engineer that should be aware of this stuff, and probably is, but staff do have a lot of concerns with that particular location for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spear. Any other comments on this? Councillor Blanchard, and then we'll go to Councillor Neal after that.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Hearing the presentation earlier, I guess I was satisfied with the responses that we received, because I think initially I was sort of leaning more towards the Langmaid Park, and I wanted to hear exactly why they weren't as interested in that particular area. I still think I'm happy to go with the Indian Point location, but I certainly do hear the concerns from Mr. Spear, and that concerns me as well. I was happy to hear that they had some consultation with the Pescatomakati on that, so that alleviated at least that, because that was another concern of mine. So if they do have to go ahead, then I'm happy to go with that. But I think for me, certainly the Langmaid Park, as presented, I think town staff did a nice job of putting together something that we received earlier in the week. I thought that looked pretty good, actually. I think that would be a good use of that space. That would certainly be a high scoring second choice for me if this one didn't go forward. So just wanted to put that out there. And thank you to Mr. Acton for what he put together. I thought it was great.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. Councillor Neal.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just to add to what Councillor Blanchard just mentioned with regards to Langmaid Park, what we had presented to us as an option for Langmaid, I thought did look very attractive, and again thought it was a great use of that space, adding additional parking and the washrooms in that location down towards the city center. I thought, or the town center, I thought would be a nice addition. I do again share Mr. Spear's concerns about them doing the EIA there on our old, essentially what was an old dump area. I guess my one question for staff was when that diagram of Langmaid Park was being prepared for us, was there any thought, I guess, given into the fact that it is a memorial park with these memorial trees that Dr. Johnson had mentioned to us?
In discussion with Mr. Atkin, actually, as the meeting's gone on, there's not that many that they could be moved and incorporated. If you saw the plan, it only used less than a third of the park, or roughly. So I think there's still lots of room to move those particular trees around. They've had to been replaced once or twice since I've been around, some of them, because of the deer problem that we continuously have, and they were eating the original trees were there. So there might be the second or third tree as we've had to battle that. So I think we can work around it, but certainly we could get in touch with, if council decides that that might be their preferred location, we could get in touch with those and ask if they have any concerns if we, move them. I would think because it's basically the same soil in the area, sometimes when you move a bigger tree, it can create a problem. But since it's essentially just going to be moving it a few feet, if at all, I think we should be able to, the life of them should be assured. So I'd feel comfortable doing that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. Anybody else? I'm hearing potentially a couple for Langmaid Park, but the motion before us, just to remind, is specific to a different location. So unless someone would like to amend, I will call the question unless there's more comments. Okay.
Your worship.
Yep.
Sorry, this isn't really, when we originally brought this before the committee meeting, we had left that blank, if you remember. And so the only reason that's relevant is because there's something about third-party landowners there, which doesn't really apply to this. So everything after the word St. Andrews, so the phrase upon written agreement with any third-party landowners can probably be removed completely from the motion because we're only looking at 2 town-owned properties at this point in time.
If this was written and advertised, I should look for a move just to officially amend that, correct? Okay. So we'll be looking for an amendment to drop that part off the motion. Then if you guys want to go to it, I see Councillor Heenan, seconder is Deputy Mayor Akaji. So once again, I'll read it just to be clear that council recommends Indian Point at the corner of Water Street and Prince of Wales Street location, the installation of the Sanders Outdoor Recreation Trails Inc. outdoor exercise course for St. Andrews. We have a mover and a seconder. Any discussion on that amendment? Okay, all those in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That is everybody. So the amendment has been accepted. So now we have to approve the motion. Councillor Blanchard, I see your hand.
Yeah, just one final comment, Your Worship, if I could. So with this, I'm just curious. So if this did go forward as it is, as proposed, and they go ahead with the environmental impact assessment, if that, or the geological survey, whatever they have to do, if that comes back and says it's not a suitable site, does then this have to come back before council in a new form? So it would. So I'm just wondering, again, I don't know what consensus here is on council for a second choice, but would it make sense just to bring it back, or could we put in Langmaid Park as a second choice if that is not suitable, that primary area is not suitable?
We do have the ability to do another amendment and add that in if you'd like.
I guess it's sort of what would be the consensus on council as a second choice. I guess I'm not really sure where everybody is. I know where Councillor Neal is, but I'm not sure where everybody else is. I don't know if we had consensus on what the second choice would be.
Well, if you want to amend it, propose that amendment, we can just have a quick debate on it and find out if everyone's good with that or not. So what I'm hearing is that you'd like to amend it and add that the second choice, if the Indian Point Park at the corner of Water Street and Prince of Wales location is not suitable due to the testing, that you would put Langmaid Park as the number 2 option. Better words, but that's the spirit of it.
That's the spirit of it. Yes.
Do we have a seconder for that amendment to add in that? All right, I got Councillor Heenan again. So we will once again vote on this amendment, and then we'll go back to the original motion. So any more debate on this one? Okay, all those in favor of this amendment, please signify by saying aye. Okay, that is everybody. So that amendment has now been carried. So we are going back to the motion at this particular point. So again, we're just voting on that motion that drops upon written agreement with the third-party landowners and adding in that second choice, which is Langmaid Park. So we'll be looking for a mover for the motion. Councillor Neal, seconded by, I think, Councillor Blanchard. Now one last time, open this up for any discussion. Okay, call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. And anyone opposed? That's nobody, so that has been carried. Thank you, council. So we do have another motion on this one, though, do we not, Councillor Gumichel?
The second motion, that council instructs staff to come up with a written agreement for the ongoing operations and improvement of the outdoor exercise park with SORTI for council approval prior to initial construction.
Perfect. And seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Akaji, discussion on this one. Just want to confirm, did council want me to reach out to Mr. Ames prior to this as well as part of the before construction?
Yeah.
Okay, seeing just a show of hands, if you want me to reach out just to be sure that I'm acting on behalf of council. That's majority, so we're good there. So we'll do that as well, Mr. Spear, just so you're aware. So we got a mover and a seconder. So any more discussion on this one? Call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody. That has been carried. So thank you very much, council. At this particular time, we're switching off Councillor Gumichel and going to Councillor Heenan. I will declare my first conflict of interest of this meeting and pass it over to the very talented Deputy Mayor Akaji.
Thank you, Your Worship, for that nice comment. Councillor Heenan, Planning and Economic Development Committee. It's up to you, and it's PED. Well, you'll read it, but.
All right, Your Worship and Council, here we go for number 1. PED 211102, Amendment Bylaw Z21-04, 603366 NB Limited Van Horn Garden Homes rezoning for property identification number of 013268081, second reading. 60336 NB Limited Van Horn Garden Homes is requesting a rezoning for PID number 01326081, a 3.4 acre lot at the southeast corner of Mowat Drive and Bar Road. The request is to move from the estate residential zone to multiple zone residential 1 zone to create a housing development. For the regular council meeting on January the 17th, 2022, provided with this reports are the views of the Planning Advisory Committee on January 5th, 2022, and a summary of public hearing of objections from January the 10th, 2022. The first reading, Your Worship, was December the 13th, 2021. View of the Planning Advisory Committee, January the 5th, 2022. And public hearing of objection was January the 10th, 2022. And the action and motion is that council gives leave for second reading to the amendment bylaw Z21-04 to the Town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw Z21-01 for the rezoning of PID 01326081 for 603366 NB Limited Van Horn Garden Homes from estate residential zone to multiple residential 1 zone. And I so move this, Your Worship and Council.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. We need a seconder. Councillor Hurdle. Any discussion? There being no further discussion, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, raise your hand, signify aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Any nays? So it's carried. Now, do I read this, Mr. Knopper?
Deputy Mayor, I'd ask you to read it in full because of the new updated version that was provided to you.
Okay. The new updated version. Just a second, I want to make sure I've got the new updated in front of me. Sorry.
Yep.
And I do. Okay. Bylaw number Z21-04, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z21-01, being zoning bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews. Be it enacted by the Council of the Town of St. Andrews as follows. 1. Bylaw number Z21-01, the zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, is amended by changing the zone as shown on the zoning map attached to the said bylaw as Schedule A thereof for the lands shown on Schedule 1 attached here too, and forming a part hereof from ER, which is the state residential zone, to multiple residential zone, MR1 zone, subject to the property owner entering into a development agreement pursuant to the provisions of Section 59 of the Community Planning Act. It was read the first time, the 13th day of December 2021, and it is now read the second time, the 17th day of January 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate that. And we'll move on, Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. PED 211103, Amendment Bylaw Z21-05, rezoning of PID 15036-031 for Belmax Incorporated table of reading. Belmax Incorporated is requesting a rezoning for PID 15036-031, a 2.1 acre lot between Mowat Drive and Canterbury Close subdivision. The request is to move from a state residential zone to multiple residential 2 zone to create a housing development condominium. For the regular council meeting on January the 17th, 2022, provided with this reports are the views of the Planning Advisory Committee on January the 5th, 2022. Based on the feedback received from PAC, Belmac Incorporated has requested that the process for amendment Z21-05 be tabled for further review by the developer. First reading was December 13th, 2021. Views of the Planning Advisory Committee, January the 5th, 2022. And the motion, Your Worship and Council, is that Council tables Amendment Bylaw Z21-05 to the Town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw Z2101 for the rezoning of PID 15036-031 for Belmax Incorporated from a state residential zone to multiple residential 2 zone. And I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. Seconder for that one. Deputy Mayor Akaji, we'll open up for debate or discussion. Just for the notes, this was tabled or requested to be tabled by the developer themselves after hearing some views that were expressed at the Planning Advisory Committee, which we did get a report on. So any other discussion on this one? Okay, call the question. All those in favor of tabling this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is everybody that has been tabled. And I do note that Councillor Blanchard did recuse himself from that particular motion. And I believe if I jump back to the agenda, it will be my turn to declare my second and final conflict of the night. So back to you, Deputy Mayor.
You're on mute.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. And back to you on Councillor Heenan on Planning and Economic Development Committee Chair.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. PED 211204, Amendment Bylaw Z21-06 to zoning B law, I assume that's bylaw Z2101 for nano breweries, second and third reading. The town of St. Andrews is seeking a zoning bylaw amendment to permit nano breweries in central commercial zone to add a definition of nano brewery to the St. Andrews zoning bylaw 21-01 and to allow licensed premises in the aforementioned nano breweries. This same amendment had been made to the previous zoning bylaw 10-04, but the newly adopted zoning bylaw did not carry forward this amendment. The amendment would be a text change to zoning bylaw Z21-01 to expedite the process for nano breweries changes. Council can proceed to make 2 readings of bylaw change under the updated bylaw 16-03 procedural bylaw. For regular meeting council on January 17th, 2022, provided with this reports are views of the Planning Advisory Committee on January the 5th, 2022. First reading was December 13th, 2021. Views of the Planning Advisory Committee, January 5th, 2022. Public hearing of objections, January 17th, 2022. And your action, your worship, is that council grants leave for second reading of amendment bylaw Z21-06 to the town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw Z21-01 regarding a text amendment for nano breweries. And I so move that, your worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. We need a seconder, council. I saw Councillor Blanchard's hand. Is there any further discussion? Not seeing any, I'll call for the motion. All those in favor of this motion, raise your hand by saying aye. I think that was everybody. I think it was carried by everybody.
Yes,
Thank you.
your
And
worship.
your second motion, Councillor Heenan?
Thank you, your worship. That
No,
council-
no, Councillor Heenan, Deputy Mayor actually
Okay.
has to read it for second reading by title.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. By title?
Your worship, it was read in full for the first time, so you can just read it by title for the second and third reading.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. Bylaw number Z21-06, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z21-01, being zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. Being enacted by the council of the town of St. Andrews as follows. 1, by adding to the list the CC zone uses subject to terms and conditions. 2, adding a definition to the town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw for a nano brewery. And 3, by repealing paragraph C in section 5.2.1 and substituting the following. C, a licensed premises as a secondary use within a restaurant or a nano brewery. And this was read the first time, the 13th day of December 2021, and read for the second time this 17th day of January 2022. Thank you very much. And now we can carry on with your second motion, correct, Mr. Knopper? Okay, Mr. Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper, your worship. Motion that council grants leave for the third and final reading of the amendment bylaw Z21-06 to the town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw Z21-01 regarding a text amendment for nano breweries, and I so move.
And we need a seconder, council. Councillor Gumichelle. Any further discussion? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor, say aye by raising your hand. And that's everyone. Carried.
I feel like we should say cheers.
Thank you. So now I need to read it for the second time, correct? Mr. Knopper, thank you very much. And by title. Bylaw number Z21-06, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z21-01, being zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, being enacted by the council of the town of St. Andrews as follows. 1, by adding to the list of CC zone uses subject to terms and conditions. 2, add a definition to the town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw for a nano brewery. And 3, by repealing paragraph C in section 5.2.1 and substituting the following. C, a licensed premises as a secondary use within a restaurant or a nano brewery. And this was read the first time on the 13th day of the 17th of December 2021, and read the second time this 17th day of January 2022. And now it is read for the third time, the 17th day of January 2022. Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship.
And we'll
And we'll
continue on with you when the
Thank you
mayor.
very much. We'll continue on.
All right, here we go again. PED 220102, Amendment MP 20-044 to Municipal Plan MP 20-01 for rezoning of Kingsbury Arms Incorporated, first reading. Ms. Kathy Diane Lewis and 722892 NB Limited at 219 King Street, known as Kingsbury Arms, is seeking rezoning of the property from service residential to tourist commercial zone. This property has been known as a tourist accommodation facilities for the last 25 years. The proposed amendment to the municipal plan would change the property from residential designation to a commercial designation of the generalized future land use map. Please see the attached planning report from Ms. Peng, Junior Planner for the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission. The action and motion is that council grant leave for the first reading of Amendment MP 2004 to the Town of St. Andrews Municipal Plan MP 20-01 for Kathy Diane Lewis, 722892 NB Limited, Kingsbury Arms Incorporated, PID 01323328, 15097058 and 1515954. 219 King Street, move from residential designation to commercial designation to the generalized future land use map. And I so move it, Your Worship.
Thank you. A seconder for that motion? Yeah, Councillor Neal. Any discussion on that one? All right, call the question. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. That's everyone that has been carried. Quick one, Mr. Knopper, in my report, I've got the staff report, then it just says a bylaw to amend, and then it goes into Paul Knopper, the Town of St. Andrews, and it's got a bylaw schedule A. Am I missing a page? I read the staff report, but I don't see the page for the bylaw, I don't believe. Am I missing something?
Give me 1 second, Your Worship. I'm just checking my document here.
I just noticed that while I was in, while I recused myself from the previous one.
If not, Your Worship, I can definitely, I have a copy of it and I could screen share it so that you could read it and so that it is official.
Why don't we do that? Because I do have the next one, bylaw number Z2107. That one's in there, but it seems to be, I have your follow-up page afterwards, but it just looks like the one in between is not there.
Yeah,
unless I can just read it by title, the total title.
You can, but just give me a second. I will share my screen here, and well, hopefully I can share my screen here. 1 second, Council. Council, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
That's your bylaw, Your Worship.
So it is a bylaw to amend bylaw number MP 20-01 being municipal plan bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews, be enacted by the Council of the Town of St. Andrews as follows. Number 1, bylaw number MP 20-01, the municipal plan bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews is amended by changing the designation as shown in the generalized future land use map attached to the said bylaw, Schedule A thereof, for the lands shown on Schedule 1 attached here to and forming part hereof from a residential designation to commercial designation, read here a first time on the 17th of January 2022. Thank you for the assist on that one, Mr. Knopper. And we'll go Mr. Heenan, Councillor Heenan, to the next motion.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Motion that council sets the date of Monday, January 31st, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. through electronic meeting for a public presentation as per Section 25 of the Community Planning Act on Amendment MP 20-04 to the Town of St. Andrews Municipal Plan MP 20-01 for Miss Kathy Diane Lewis, 722-892 NB Limited, Kingspray Arm Incorporated, PID 013233281509705 and 15159-544. 219 King Street, move from residential designation to commercial designation to the generalized future land use map, and I so move.
Thank you. Seconder for that motion, Deputy Mayor Akaji, and we'll open that one up for discussion. Okay, we will call the question. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Once again, that is everybody, and that motion has been carried. Next one.
All right. Here we go. Gotta go find my papers.
You disappeared there for a minute. I was worried about
I know,
you.
I had to go get my papers.
I thought you had enough of the reading.
Now we're going to PED 220101, Amendment Z21-07 to zoning bylaw Z21-01, rezoning Kingsbury Arms, first reading. Miss Kathy Diane Lewis and 722-892 NB Limited at 219 King Street, known as Kingsbury Arm, is seeking rezoning of the property for service residential zone to tourist commercial zone. This property has been known as a tourist accommodation facility for the last 25 years. The proposed amendment to the zone bylaw would move them into a commercial zone and allow them to offer licensed premises as a secondary use within the inn. Please see attached planner report by Ms. Peng, Junior Planner for the Southwest New Brunswick Service Commission for further details. And the action, Your Worship, is that council grant first reading to Amendment Z21-07 to the Town of St. Andrews bylaw Z21-01 for Miss Kathy Diane Lewis, 722-892 NB Limited, Kingsbury Arms Inn, PID 01323328, 150-97058, and 1515944, 219 King Street, rezoning from serviced residential zone to tourist commercial zone, and I so move it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heenan. A seconder for that motion. Councillor Blanchard, discussion on this one. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. And anyone opposed?
I was late.
That's okay. If you don't vote, it's a yes. So that has been unanimous and that has been carried. So at this time, I'll read it then. So it's bylaw number 21-07, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z2101, being the zoning bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews, being enacted by the Council of the Town of St. Andrews as follows. Number one, that bylaw number Z2101, being the zoning bylaw for the Town of St. Andrews, is amended by changing the zone as shown as the zoning map attached to the said bylaw, Schedule A thereof, for the land shown on Schedule 1, attached here too, and forming part of thereof from an SR, which is a serviced residential zone, to TC, which is tourist commercial zone. It is section 531. It's amended to read 531BI, which is a licensed, or one, I should say, a licensed premises as a secondary use within a hotel or restaurant that does not include a lounge. And that was read the first time on the 17th day of January 2022. Next one.
Your Worship, just one quick, so council knows, we have to host the public presentation first because there's a municipal plan amendment. After that, you will see the motions for public hearing of objection and call to PAC for your information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. Appreciate it.
All right, ready for the next.
We are.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. PED 220103, zoning bylaw Z22-01 first reading. Zoning bylaw Z21-01 has been in effect since March of 2021, approximately 9 months, and it has been identified that there are several needed modifications to the bylaw. The modifications to the bylaw include removal of redundancies and contradictions, high-density residential use. Rather than making the changes through an amendment bylaw, it is recommended that Z21-01 be repealed and replaced with Z22-01, which will incorporate all the amendments made to zoning bylaw Z21-01. Provided with this report is a planning report from Mr. Gopin, Senior Planner, Southwest Brunswick Service Commission, detailing the suggested change. In addition is a copy of the draft zoning bylaw Z22-01 with highlighted change. In the action, that council grants leave for the first reading to the Town of St. Andrews zoning bylaw, and I so move it, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. A seconder? Looking for a seconder. We got Deputy Mayor Akaji. Now this is open for discussion. Any member of council? Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Similar to my comments the last time this came up, I guess with respect and absolute trust in the work that Mr. Gopin does for us. Much of what's written here, I think, is beyond the scope of what we as a council can consider, but not all. And I think that it's important for us to identify that a lot of municipalities have stumbled when it comes to the notion of density. What density means, what it means to encourage density, what it means to discourage density, and some of the amendments that are in the bylaw in front of us speak specifically to density. And for me, I guess what that means is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't want to overstate myself here, but I'm looking for a kind of a vision as to what we want to be, what the kind of community that we want to be, and that sort of speaks to what we'll allow in terms of density, and so that we will either all agree with each other or all disagree with each other. If we can kind of get a notion of what it means, what we want, where we're going. Are we encouraging density in the downtown core? Do we know what that looks like? Should we fight against it? What's our vision for this? And maybe we should carve some time aside to discuss that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hurdle. So just to be clear, Council, I think Councillor Hurdle's wanting to table this motion and have a work session on it and then circle back on a motion, because there is some things within this particular zoning bylaw changes that he supports. He just wants us to really have that, to his point, visioning of how far we want to take this, or at least what we want to be when it comes to density. Any other member of council? Councillor Blanchard.
I would support having that conversation. I did have a few proposed amendments as per some emails exchanges with staff and with Mr. Gopin, but I would support the tabling just to have that further conversation. I think that would be beneficial to everyone.
Okay, let's just make this official just for the minutes. Councillor Hurdle, are you in fact proposing to table this motion?
I think that would work, absolutely. If we could just have a discussion around what we're looking to do.
Councillor Blanchard, are you proposing to second that? Yes. Okay. Discussion on tabling? Okay. If there's none, all those in favor of tabling, please signify by saying aye. Okay, that's everybody. So that motion has been tabled. So it sounds like Mr. Knopper, that in our meeting scheduling, what we should do is, based on the comments that I heard tonight, is we should have a bit of a work session specifically around when it comes to the density element, and perhaps there's more, but just have some conversation before we bring this forward. So thank you, council, for tabling that. At this point, that takes us through the actual motions, but we do have some under new business as well. So we're going to be switching to page 229. Bear with me here for a quick sec. Almost there. Okay, so we're going to, once again, Councillor Blanchard for the next motion.
1 second, your worship. I've got to get myself caught up here as well. So, to get a page number, your worship.
229.
229. All right, I can skip ahead here.
I didn't want to say the page number. It might scare some people off council in the future.
Fair enough. I will get there. Almost there. Digitally, I'm flipping through to my iPad here. It's not as easy, I suppose, as would be with paper. Here we are. I believe we're here. So PW 220107. Subject: Eastern Charlotte Waterway request for municipal support to the Climate Action and Awareness Fund. So Eastern Charlotte Waterways is requesting support of the town of St. Andrews to apply to the Climate Action and Awareness Fund through Environment and Climate Change Canada, ECCC, for a joint project with Vibrant Communities Charlotte County for the project Tackling Energy Poverty Through a Climate Lens in Southwestern New Brunswick. The partnership is seeking $350,000 in funding to support this project. Project objectives include: create residential greenhouse gas emissions inventories, identify high greenhouse gas emissions by energy source type, create a residential greenhouse gas emissions reduction plan by the highest emitter source, leveraging ECCC capital funding for energy assets with provincial and other funding sources to purchase and install capital assets into homes to reduce energy consumption and cost. Please see the attached project outline from Eastern Charlotte Waterways. And the motion for council is that council supports the Eastern Charlotte Waterways and Vibrant Communities Charlotte County application for $350,000 in funding from the Climate Action and Awareness Fund through Environment and Climate Change Canada for the project Tackling Energy Poverty Through a Climate Lens in Southwestern New Brunswick, and I so move.
Talking to myself here. Seconder for that motion. Councillor Hurdle, discussion on that one. All right, all those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. Nice and quick. That one has passed as well unanimously. And the next one, I believe, would be Councillor Heenan again. Yeah, you had a good break, Councillor Heenan. It's on page
234.
Yeah, sorry.
234.
234, yes.
Here we go. PW 220106, bylaw 22-01, a bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of part of the Bar Road. The town of St. Andrews has been working with surveyors and the current landowners on remedying a leftover easement from the straightening of the Bar Road that goes through their property. During the mid-1980s, Bar Road needed to be realigned in order to facilitate the straightening of it. In doing so, the road was shifted specifically in the area of Champlain Avenue and Bar Road. In 1991, a subdivision and an amalgamation report was registered with the Land Registry Office of the province of New Brunswick. However, in order to complete the adjustments, a stop-up and closure bylaw is necessary to complete this process. Town staff have been in contact with landowners and they are in favor of completing the process. Your worship, the motion is that council grants first reading to bylaw 2201, a bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of part of the Bar Road. I so move.
Thank you. A seconder for that motion. I got Deputy Mayor Akaji again. Discussion on that one. Okay, call the question on what is the final motion, I believe, of the evening finally. Is all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that's everybody, so that has passed. It is bylaw number 22-01, a bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of part of the Bar Road, be enacted by the council for the town of St. Andrews under the authority vested in it under the Local Governance Act 10.1. It enacts as follows. The section of town streets named below shall be stopped up, permanently closed, and shall no longer be a public thoroughfare. It's A, the portion of the Bar Road is described as follows. beginning at the northwestern corner of property having PID 15070535, going thence easterly on a curved angle along the northern sides of properties having PID 15164486 and PID 01325471, ending halfway through PID 0132547 on the northern property line. Going thence northwestern along the northern property line of PID 01325547 and on a curving angle through PID 15164486 to a northwestern corner of PID 15070535, the line to the place of beginning. The section road shifted consists of 15.24 meters or 50 feet of roadway. Being more practically shown on the plan attached to Schedule A. The first time on the 17th of January 2022. And I know I haven't been mayor very long, but that is the most unusual one that I've read to date. So that's quite a description. We'll have to do that 2 more times, I guess, if that's going to happen.
Your worship, the next time you'd only have to read it by title.
Perfect. I will just read it by title and save me a lot of numbers. Okay, question period.
I have another motion, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry, you do have a second follow-up one to that too, don't you? Yeah, we're gonna set the hearing. Go ahead, sorry.
All right, so thank you, Your Worship and Council. That Council sets the date of Monday, February the 7th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. through an electronic meeting of public hearing of objections to bylaw 21-01, a bylaw respecting the stopping up and permanent closure of part of the Bar Road, and I so move it, Your Worship.
A seconder for the hearing of objections. Got Councillor Blanchard.
Your worship, just one change. It should be 2201. My mistake. It's switching over from the years here, so it should be 22-01.
2201. We'll call that a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Sorry, do I have a seconder for that?
I can't.
I'll pick anyone around. Councillor Hurdle, he's the closest to me on the screen. Councillor Hurdle, discussion? Okay, all in favor of that, the last motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we are done motions. Question period. Mr. Knopper, anything this evening?
Your worship, we have 3 people on in attendance, so I'm just going to go to them first. I'll also let you know I've received nothing through email. In our attendees, Ms. Diane Lewis, Ms. Pamela Rigby, or Mr. Henry Hansen, if you wish to speak to council specifically on anything on the agenda tonight, please raise your hand now. If you need to, your hand raising signal will be at the bottom of your screen where your mute, stop video, and information is. I got Pamela Rigby that would like to speak to council.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rigby, you have the floor to council. If you can please unmute, you can speak to council.
Yes, hi. Thank you. Earlier, a question was raised about the existence of liquor licenses for Kingsbury Arms under the previous owners. I do know a little of the history of that, which might assist clarification. In 1996, when the operation began, there was, I don't know if the proper word is an exception or an easement, which permitted the inn to operate as a tourist home, but still within the residential designation, which I think no longer exists. And it was under that umbrella that the liquor license was obtained, and which was renewed without event up until we relinquished it in about 2016 or 2017. So I just thought I might clarify that for the record for you, because I know someone asked what the previous situation was.
Thank you, Mr. Rigby. It was me who asked, so I did think that it had in the past. That does provide some history. So thanks for staying on for the 2 hours and 15. Yeah, we appreciate you being in attendance tonight. I know it does relate to Kingsbury Arms, but it is good to have that context that it is not a completely new concept for that particular building to be serving alcohol. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Knopper, is there anyone else?
I will go one last call to either Mr. Henry Hansen or Ms. Diane Lewis. If you wish to raise your hand now, This is the time you've got a chance to speak to council. Seeing no additional hands raised, your worship, back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopper. It's good to see with the new technology that there can be some more back and forth with people joining our meetings. That is important. And one thing that we certainly have missed during the pandemic is usually before people are in the same room with us and we have some meaningful discussions or questions that way. At this time, I'm looking for councilors' comments. Any councilor, deputy mayor comment? Deputy Mayor Akagi.
Just to wish everybody a good new year, 2022, and prayers to get rid of COVID.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Anyone else? Okay, I myself just have a couple quick things. I just want to echo Mr. Spear's comments on the Wellness Center handing out the rapid tests. That is a serious commitment from them. If you see, it's lined up the whole day. And I know Annette herself was handing them out, but I also know Sandra's been there handing them out. And as well, I know that they are a wellness provider, but that is a lot of people coming and going. So thank you for them for providing that service. That's going above and beyond for the community. As again, that was very, very high traffic. I don't know if anyone stopped by. And then my other just two quick comments are this council, we're going to have to, take a week or two, but we are really going to have a conversation about the arena. I did reach out and get a nice message from, I reached out to Councillor Neal, get some input, talk to staff, but we do know that every week that goes by, that is costing us money with no revenue. With that being said, the last thing we want to do with so many services and things being taken away as far as, social and physical well-being, the last thing you want to do is be the first arena to close down and then it opens up a week later and you pulled out the ice. So not an easy decision before us, but it is going to be a conversation coming up. And just the last thing I want to say is that there is a lot of businesses right now in our community that cannot operate. And I don't need to get in the list because I don't want to leave anyone out, salons, spas, but in particular, I noticed that a lot of restaurants have changed to takeout menus. So if you do have a means to do it, I would encourage you to support a local restaurant or other business, that's trying to find a way to survive under phase 3 or even phase 2, depending on the operation, because, it can't be easy. And a lot of government grants, unfortunately, are minimized or gone away right now. So again, I just wanted to draw that awareness, do whatever we can to keep people employed and businesses open. Unfortunately, for council, there is a quick staff request to go to closed session. I know it is overtime. Usually we try to get done in 2 hours and it's 2:15 already in this meeting. It would be to go to closed session under 68(1)D of the Local Government Act, which is a land issue. So I'll be looking for a mover to go to closed session. Councillor Gumashell, seconded by Councillor Hurdle. Any discussion on going to closed session? Okay, all in favor of going to close, please signify by saying aye. We are in closed session. That was unanimous, and I'll give Mr. Spear a while just to get everything cleaned up. So we'll have an opportunity to be offline and just council. Thank you everyone for watching tonight.
Councillor Gumashell and Councillor Blanchard. So we'll come back to regular council. And then I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn as soon as, Mr. Knopper, are we okay?
We're okay. We're at a close. You can go to a motion to adjourn.
So I need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Blanchard and seconder Councillor Hurdle. So good night, everybody. Thank you very much for helping me through the end here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.